And a very good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here. We're a couple of minutes late. This evening we are expecting Mr. Obi Rettimaya, the former CEO of SARA, to continue our discussion from where we left off last time he was here, I think 2 weeks ago. And that program caused a lot of discussion among those detractors of SARA, those who felt that SARA was a waste of time and they didn't accomplish anything. So we want to continue the discussion to answer those questions. So please, if you will, share the link. Mr. Retmai is going to be here shortly. Share the link, and we will have that discussion in a short while. We will have that discussion in a short while. You know, people ask me all the time, why do you do this? Why do you not retire and read books and write fancy academic papers? And I say, yes, that is also important. But what is more important is that I was given an opportunity to read books in the first place, to engage with ideas because of the sacrifices of ordinary. And so part of scholarship must be given back to the people in the form of public engagement. See myself as a public scholar, what we call an activist scholar or a scholar activist, who's always trying to use the knowledge that is gained from reading books, from observing people in their communities, in their society, and giving them back, in the words of a UC Kwayana, giving them back to the people as a political nourishment and by extension, cultural nourishment. That's what I'm about. It's about being that public scholar whose work is not just confined to the classroom, but that classroom is extended to the public space. I'm David Hines. And welcome again to Politics 101. If you're joining us from Guyana, welcome. Welcome to all the Guyanese joining us from the homeland. Those of you who are joining us from the wider Caribbean, welcome to Politics 101. Please share the link and let everyone know that we are on. If you're joining us from North America, welcome. Joining us from the United States. How about the people from Brooklyn? Welcome. Welcome to all of you from the Washington, D.C. area, from Pennsylvania. Lots of our people there in Philadelphia and the environs outside of Philly. Welcome to Politics 101. How about those of you on the West Coast? California. There's some people joining us from Middle America, Chicago. Welcome to Politics 101. How about our brothers and sisters who are joining us from Europe? From Europe, welcome. Those of you joining us from the United Kingdom, from England in particular, England, welcome. Some of you joining us from France. Please know that you are part of the family. I know lots of you join this program via YouTube, and often we forget to welcome you to Politics of One. You out there on YouTube, welcome to Politics 101. Tonight we're going to be talking SARA. As you know, SARA was an agency that was created under the coalition government. And it was one of the first agencies that was disbanded when the new government came to power. And we often ask, why did they move with such haste to disband that agency? So there's something that agency was doing that was driving fear into them, that they did not want to see the day of light. A couple of weeks ago, we had Mr. Obi Retmire on to speak about what that agency was doing at the time that it was disbanded. And he's going to be back. He's going to be back tonight to continue that discussion. So please share the link. Please share the link and let everyone know that Politics 101 is on. Lots of discussion on politics going on. We know that at GCOM, we saw them reopening the position for assistant CEO. That is unprecedented. They reopened the application process. Somebody applied, and according to the government commissioners, the person who was eventually given the job based on, again, the casting vote by the chairman of the commission, that person was not the most qualified person. This is what the commissioners are arguing. First of all, why reopen the process? Second, having reopened the process, why not someone who was a consensus candidate? Nothing in GCOM these days is based on consensus. That is an agreement between the commissioners from both sides of the political aisle. Decisions on GCOM are now based on the government commissioners plus the chairman of the commission. And we understand that under the former chairman of the commission, Mr. Steve Surajbali, he hardly, in fact, he told me that only once did he use his casting vote. Whenever there was a deadlock between the two sides, 3-3, what he would do is try for consensus, try to get them to agree. If they don't agree to one thing, he tried to get them to agree to a second thing. And he would not make a decision until they agree. And often he got them to agree. He didn't have to use his casting vote. Under the present chairman, it seems as if more often than not, she uses the casting vote. So she's not using the Surajbali model of consensus. She's siding with one political side. Now, if you have GCOM, which is a very important agency, because that agency is responsible for determining elections. And elections are very important. Elections determine who governs. One would think, therefore, that that commission, because it is deadlock on both sides, wants a neutral person who would try to bring consensus, not somebody who will side with one side. And this is the problem with GCOM, the big problem. You have a political commission that is split down the line, one side versus the other. And then you have a chairperson. One would think that the chairperson, in the interest of national cohesion, in the interest of ensuring that the system works, that she would not use her casting vote in a willy-nilly way. But we have noticed from 2020 to the present, the chairwoman of the commission is not striving for consensus. And so therefore, that puts GCOM in crisis. Mr. Clement Rohi, who became the new commissioner, replacing Bibi Shadi, he said that GCOM should look like Guyana. All right, so far so good. GCOM should look like Guyana. What does he mean by GCOM should look like Guyana? My own view is that he means that GCOM must have people from the other ethnic group, because most of GCOM staffers are African Guyanese. So it seems to me that he's saying, okay, let's get GCOM workers from other ethnic groups, Amerindians and East Indians and so forth. But does he really believe in ethnic equity? We have been calling for ethnic equity in other areas, in the distribution of resources. Mr. Rohi has been silent on that. We have been calling for ethnic equity in terms of infrastructure, roads, canals. Where is Mr. Rohi's voice on that? Mr. Rohi appears to be interested in equity, ethnic equity at GCOM. Where is Mr. Rohi's voice on ethnic equity in contracts? Mr. Rohi wants ethnic equity at GCOM. So my view is that Rohi is really not interested in ethnic equity, really. Because if he's an equity person, you would want equity not just at GCOM. GCOM must look like Guyana, but so must the distribution of resources. So must contract, the sharing of contract. So must repair of roads and other infrastructure. Mr. Rohi is not interested in ethnic equity. Mr. Rohi wants to use ethnic equity to get more PPP people in GCOM. I am not saying the lady who is now the new assistant CEO is PPP. I don't know that. I am not saying the CEO that they got in is a PPP. I don't know that. But we have a CEO and an assistant CEO that the PPP is happy with. And Mr. Roy says GCOM must look like Guyana. But how about the police force, Mr. Roy? How about go get some East Indians and Amerindians to go into the police force so that they can be out there facing bandits and doing all the stuff that policemen have to risk their lives to do? How about getting some East Indians and make the police look like Guyanese? Dr. Jagan wanted to do that when he came back in 1992. Where are the Indians in the police force to protect Guyana? How about equity in the army to defend Guyana? Go get a lot of Indians to join the army to go and defend Guyana. You see, the PPP want Indian in the police force not to protect Guyana. They want Indians in the police force at the higher level. And they want those Indians in the police force to be able to shoot down Africans, and then they charge African police, not the Indian police. They want Indians in strategic positions. Why not bring more Indians in the police force? You have the power. Recruit Indians to the police force so that the police force looks like Guyana. For the army has to defend Guyana's territory. The vast majority of soldiers are Africans. Are you saying the job of defending Guyana is Black people's job and not for other ethnic groups? Why are you not recruiting Indians to go help to defend Guyana? Mr. Roy, we don't only want GCOM to look like Guyana, we want the Guyana money. Guyana money. We want the money to also look like Guyana. The distribution of the money to look like Guyana. Wealth. Mr. Roy, do you agree with me that wealth in Guyana has an ethnic face? It has a racial face. By the estimation of the economists, only 10% of the wealth of Guyana belong to African Guyanese. The other 90% belong mostly to East Indians and Portuguese. Does that look like Guyana? Mr. Roy, you want GCOM to look like Guyana? What about the distribution of money to look like Guyana? Wealth. We can't be hypocritical about this thing, Roy. And I've always enjoyed a good relationship with Clement Roy. I know him since I was a boy. And this is going back to the 1970s, and I happen to believe that he's not a very nasty PPP man. He's from the old guard, he's a Jaganite, and he's a socialist, and he believes in equality and equitability. But why is he only calling for equality and equitability at GCOM? I think Mr. Roy is more interested in getting people into GCOM who will do the bidding of the PPP. I don't think Roy is interested in ethnic equality and ethnic balance, at GCOM. I don't think he's interested in ethnic balance. He's interested in PPP domination of GCOM. And when you're trying to dominate, you sometimes or most times use people from your ethnic base, but you also try to find people from the other ethnic groups who will do your bidding. Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters, they're not interested in joining the police force. They're not interested in joining the army. Maybe those jobs are beneath them. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe the money is too small. So we are socializing our brothers and sisters to make money, Indian Guyanese, Portuguese. We are socializing them to make money. And we are socializing Black people to guard their money. Who are the security guards at the banks? Who are the security guards with them big guns at them Chinese supermarkets? Who are the security guards? African Guyanese. So African Guyanese are socialized not to make money. They're socialized to guard money. They're not socialized to be at GCOM and to help determine free elections. We are socializing other people to be at pivotal places like GCOM. Mr. Rohi, what do you mean when you say that GCOM must look like Guyana? It's a ruse. It's a mask. You want PPP functionaries or people who will do the biddings of the PPP to be a GCOM. And so GCOM becomes now the hotbed. We cannot continue with a situation where decisions at GCOM are made by PPP commissioners and the chairperson. Those other three commissioners represent the interest of half the voters in Guyana. It means half the voters of Guyana are not influencing decision-making at a very important agency in the country. They're left out. They're there as window dressing. The chair is making no effort to bring them in. She's using our vote to keep them out. Let's talk politics. Let's talk politics. Let's break this thing out. You have 6 members of GCOM, 3 from one side, half of the population representing their interests, and 3 representing the interests of the other. And you have a chairman who is supposed to represent neither interest, which means that she has to avoid at every cost, at all costs, voting lock, stock, and barrel with one side of the other. But if she decides that vote after vote on personnel matters, on matters of interpretation of the law, on matters of what document to turn over to one of the contestants. She's voting with one side, which means she's enabling one side. She's legitimizing one side. And she is disabling the other side. That is what she's using her vote to. That by no means is democratic. I don't know the political affiliation of the chairperson. I don't want to know. It's not my business. It's her personal business. I don't want to know. And I'm not going to play God and say that she's pro PPP. I don't know. But what I do know is that she holds an important key. And she has consistently, empirically, used that key to enable one side and to disable the other side. That cannot be a democracy. You all hear me out, because this is extremely important. I am arguing that the rigging of the election has started. Because the personnel who are going to determine the elections are being selected by a process that is skewed towards one side. It is not a fair process. It is not a fair process. And if the personnel who are going to determine what happens are favored by one side, something is amiss. Yes, we want biometrics. Yes, we want a clean voters list. But ultimately, the people who are going to sign off on the votes are the people at GCOM. The people who are going to officiate, the people who are going to make the system work or doesn't work. So in addition to the voters and the biometrics, we want a fair GCOM. The personnel at GCOM must be able to have the confidence of both sides. And we are seeing from now, even without cleaning the list, even without biometrics, we are seeing that the personnel who are put there have the confidence of one contestant. The other contestants, they do not have the confidence of. So the rigging has begun. They are rigging the process by which personnel at GCOM are selected. I'm not saying elected. They're selected. The process by which they're selected is a partisan process. And the key to that, I repeat, is the chairman, who is assumed to be a neutral chairman. And my argument is that that neutrality must not be trifled with. That neutrality should be used to bring about consensus. The storage body method The casting vote should be a very last resort. One doesn't have to put that in the Constitution. The Constitution assumes that. The casting vote should be an extremely last resort. I am arguing that the present chairman is using the casting vote as the first resort. That is not in keeping with the spirit of the laws that govern election. When the counting is finished at the place of poll, it's the people who are the GCOM workers who have to certify it. And when they finish certifying it, it has to go to the commissioners, the 7 commissioners, for final say so. No, the 2020 election did not go to first of all, when Lowenfield and others certified, the court and the chairman said they're not going by what Lowenfield tell them. And the last stage in the process, where once Lowenfield and the other workers certified the election, they send it. They send it to the 7 commissioners. That did not happen in the 2020 election. Vincent Alexander was able to find Mr. Boudou thieving a seat. Because when Boudou was finished, he had to send it to the commissioners. That's how Vincent Alexander was able to find that they were thieving a seat. That is how they were able to find that the PPP squatted on a seat that belonged to the AFC at Linden. Because when the votes are counted at the place of polling, it then goes to GCOM to certify them. And then GCOM sends it to the commissioners to certify. The 2020 election did not follow that process. When the 10 districts were certified, the court overthrew it. So there was no declaration from the 4 districts, the 10 districts. And the declaration from the 10 districts did not go to the full commission to sign off on. So Vincent Alexander didn't get a chance to see whether robbing took place. There is a reason that Vincent continues to argue that the PPP and their acolytes broke up the process at Ashmin, turned it over to the courts to decide the election. I see Kofi on tonight, and Kofi's a legal man. We lived through, some of us, the 2000 elections in America. When the court, instead of allowing the state of Florida to determine the results of the election in Florida, the court by a majority of 5-4, which means 1 justice, because he had a swing vote, I think it was Justice Kennedy. 1 justice decided an election. So we had our 2000 moment in 2020. And the determination of the election was by the court, the CCJ. And the CCJ do that took powers it didn't have. Because our constitution says very clearly that on matters of election, our Court of Appeal is the final court. The CCJ argued that we are going beyond that. Matter of election is so important, and we are the apex court, so we are overriding your law. The CCJ took powers it didn't have those powers by its own charter, because its own charter says certain settled law should remain settled in the member countries. So the CCJ took power it didn't have, and then it used that power to award the election to one side. Because our election process, I repeat, step one is at the place of polling. Step two is at GCOM by its staff, its secretariat. And step three is by its commissioners. 2020 election did not have step two nor step three. You all hear me out here. Because they're talking about rigged elections. Rigging means thieving the election, manipulating the election. And the election process doesn't start with voting. It doesn't start with the voters list. It starts with the staff at GCOM. Who are you hiring to oversee the process? I'm not saying we shouldn't struggle for a clean voters list. I'm not saying we shouldn't struggle for biometrics. But I'm saying that the PPP understands that you can have all of that. But if you have your people at GCOM, and then you have a chair who is going to vote with you side, biometrics and a clean voters list are not necessarily a guarantee of free and fair elections. What I'm saying here is not saying no biometrics and no clean voters list. I'm saying in addition to a clean voters list and biometrics, we want a fair GCOM staff. Let's go back to Roy. Roy let the cat out of the bag. Roy, in an interview, I like my friend Clement, when asked about PPP rigging and so on, he said, well, you know, he's not saying that the PPP are saints. He didn't say, yes, the PPP rigging. But he said, I'm not saying that the PPP are saints. And Roy been around long. So when Roy says, and I hope the PPP listening, and I hope they tell Clement Roy what I'm saying here tonight. When Roy says GCOM must look like Guyana, he meant GCOM must look like PPP. And I want Clement to come on this program or any program, let me argue that, let me discuss that. When Clement Roy said, GCOM must look like Guyana. Remember, Guyana is being dominated right now by the PPP. Guyana money is being manipulated by the PPP. Guyana's institutions are being dominated by the PPP. The PPP is turning Guyana into an apartheid state. PPP takes up all the political space. So Guyana is PPP. Guyana equal PPP. PPP equal Guyana. So when Roy, who is one of the ideologues of the PPP, said that GCOM must look like Guyana, Brother Clement, I peep you. You really mean GCOM must look like PPP? And indeed, ZCOM is looking more and more like PPP. The chief elections officer has the confidence of the PPP. I don't know if the man is PPP, so I can't say that. I don't know how he votes. He's not like my brothers them at Cham who vote and show where they put the X. I don't know this Mr. Vishnu Prasad is a PPP. I don't know that. I don't know that the lady that I just hired is a PPP. I don't know that. I don't know the boy who they're trying to promote, who took away the server during the 2020 election and only bring it back when Robeson Ben Terry for bringing it. I don't know if he's a PPP. What I do know is that they have the confidence of the people. How do we know politics? When it comes to delicate matters of election, you are only going to have confidence in your own people or people who you perceive to be your own. If anybody said the evidence, oh, you know the people are partisan, I don't know. I don't know that they're partisan. What I do know is that one side of the partisan divide has confidence in them. I do know. And what I do know, I don't know whether Madam Chair is pro PPP or PNC or what is her thing. That's her personal business. I don't know, and I don't care to know. But what I do know is from 2020 to now, she has more often than not on critical matters voted with one side. In a system in which the logic of the law says that the casting vote of the chairperson should be last resort. And this is not, you know, the lawyers said you have what is called explicit law that is enumerated in the Constitution very clearly. And then you have laws in which the meaning is inherent or implied. I am arguing implied law. That you have a partisan commission and you have a chair who's neutral. You're implying that that chair should at all costs not be partisan, which means the vote that she has should not be used in a partisan way. Brother Suraj Bali, and I gotta try and get Steve on this program. Suraj Bali, the PPP eventually hated his guts. I'm gonna try to get him on. The Suraj Bali model, Suraj Bali told me in a conversation recently that he only used his casting vote one time. And I think Suraj Bali was on that commission for about 10 years. One time. Which meant all the other times he followed the spirit of the Constitution, what the Constitution implies. Do not use your vote to disenfranchise one side. Madam Chair, David Hines is pleading with you that the outcome of your voting pattern is the disenfranchisement of one side of the population. And in an ethnic society, disenfranchisement is one of the causes of ethnic conflict. Madam Chair, listen to your poor humble servant. I'm not a lawyer, but in my study of politics, I learned something about the law. Madam Chair, you cannot continue to use the people's power like that. You weren't put there by the PPP. You were put in that sensitive position by the power of the people. And you are there to serve the interests of all of the people. Madam Chair, your intent may not be partisan, but I'm appealing to you tonight to take another look. Your intent may not be partisan, but the outcome of your actions are partisan. It leads to disenfranchisement. You are disenfranchising one side. And by God, that one side that you're disenfranchising, most of them look like me. We have some Indian brothers and sisters. We have some Amerindian and Portuguese and mixed people in our support base. But the majority, the vast majority of the people that are being disenfranchised by your actions, the way you vote, they're African Guyanese. And they tell me, they say that David Hines preaches racial sermons. Oh, I don't know where I'm preaching sermons. I don't know that I'm preaching racial sermons, but what I do know is that Black people are under the hammer. And if Black people are under the hammer, I am under the hammer. And so I've got to speak up. I've got to speak up. I'm not interested in Black people vote. Full stop. If I'm on a party slate, I will come and ask you, please vote for me. Please vote for my slate. But that is not the only thing I want from you or for you. I want your cooperation in affirming your dignity as Black people. I'm not here to preach Black or African domination. I don't believe in that. Black people have been the victims of domination for 400 years. We must turn our backs against domination. So I'm not here to preach Black domination, but by God, I'm here to say, I am not going to rest my voice if I see other people dominating Black people. And I'm going to urge Black people and friends of Black people to stand up against racial domination. Ultimately, the PPP's road, the PPP's approach is leading to Black domination. Domination against Black people, sorry, Indian domination. And if there's Indian domination, then there is what? The opposite of domination is dominated. Not every Indian, in fact, most Indians do not directly subscribe to that domination. I admit that. But you see, racism often is not always conscious. I think the average Indian person does not know the privilege that he or she enjoys by just being Indian in Guyana in 2022. The vast majority of our Indian brothers, they don't know that they are getting some privilege. They are enjoying privilege. Most of them don't know. Some of them do know. African Guyanese who are Denied privilege. Denied privilege. We know. You don't take David Hines to come and tell you. What David Hines does is that he amplifies what you already know, what you feel in your bones. All I do is amplify it. Take it to the mountaintop. Take it to the mountaintop. And so, my message tonight is that the rigging has begun. The rigging has begun with Roy's mantra that GCOM must look like Guyana. And Guyana equal PPP, PPP equal Guyana. So taken to its logical conclusion, Mr. Roy is saying GCOM must look like PPP. And we are seeing that the rigging has begun. And when all doors are closed, when all doors are closed to democratic change, when all doors are closed to institutional change, that is, changes within the institutions, when the institutions of the country begin to reflect the views and the approaches of one side, we are talking about institutional racism. We are talking about institutional domination. When the institutions like GCOM, like the Natural Resource Fund, like the Parliament, like the police, when those institutions begin to reflect the domination by one group, you're talking about institutional racism, institutional domination. And when the institutions, remember, the police force, the army, GCOM, the ministries of government, the parliament, when you put all those institutions together, you have what is called the system, the political system. And so that's where you have systemic racism, because the institutions are racist. The institutions reflect political domination. And when you put the institutions together, you have the system. So you have systemic domination, systemic racism. You see, why don't they bring the evidence, the empirical evidence? But I'm not an empirical man. That's economist's job. They got to go and get the numbers. I'm not an empirical scholar. I'm an institutional scholar. I study institutions. I study how institutions work. And when those institutions become part of a system, I study systems. So my evidence to them is what I'm presenting here tonight. And I want them to prove me wrong. Anil Nandalal, when asked about apartheid, said the laws are not right. And he'll go to hell. You know better, you ought to know better. You're not a pupulaya. You must know that apartheid, like every other obscenity, has its legal side and it has its institutional side. And apartheid was institutional and systemic as much as it was legal. The laws of apartheid by itself did not and do not create an apartheid system. It is when those apartheid laws are manipulated to influence the system and the institutions. That's how apartheid is normalized. They don't like me to talk to you all. David Hines, go away. Go and read book. Stop preaching racial sermons. Stop preaching racial sermons. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm inspired by our gods. I'm inspired by our ancestors. I'm inspired by our artists. I'm inspired by our people who every day must walk the streets of Guyana, knowing that they're not treated as full human beings in a place that they have tenanted for 400 years. And not only tenanted, but they have humanized it. I'm inspired by your capacity to survive. And even while you're surviving, you're praying still. And even while you're praying, you're planning still. Survive and pray, but don't stop there. Brother Bob said, everyone believes great God will come from the sky and make everybody high. But now you see the light, you got to get up, stand up for your rights. God help those who help themselves. The ancestors will give us the spirit. But we have got to have the capacity and determination to disturb our enemies. I want to disturb my neighbor. I want to disturb my neighbor. My friend, the Guyanese critic, said that David Hines, I heard him on one program, he said David Hines want to create the conditions for war in Guyana. Critic, God bless you. You're doing some good work, and I don't agree with you there. What I want to create the conditions for is the decline of racism, the decline of political domination. That's what I want. I don't want war until the ignoble and unhappy regime that all our brothers and sisters in Angola, in Mozambique, in South Africa, until they're removed. Haile Selassie said that, and Bob Marley turned into song, there shall be war. Until the ignoble and unhappy regime that all our brothers and sisters in subjection in Guyana, until they're removed, our people must fight against the war that is declared against them. The war has been declared. Apartheid is war. Political domination is war. We are the victims of war. And if you're the victims of war, you must stand up and push back. Don't let nobody tell you that you are violent and you. There is physical violence. Ask the family of Quindon Bacchus. Ask the family of Orrin Boston. Ask the family of Peter Headley. Ask the families of 400 and more black men who were slaughtered. That's physical war. There is economic war. Ask the public servant. As the police, as the army, as the nurses, as the teachers, what they take home to their families compared with others who don't work as hard as they work. They protect the country. They defend the country. They keep the country healthy. They teach the country and keep it literate. And they face economic violence every day. Don't tell me about violence and to be peaceful. Don't tell me about that. My people are the victims of violence every day. When you wake up in the morning and you don't have some biscuit and cheese to put in that little child lunch kit, that's economic violence. Walter Rodney said that 40 years ago. I'm merely regurgitating and repeating. When that mother as to send a child with little or nothing in that lunch kit. That's violence. Economic violence. Don't tell me about violence. I'm fighting against violence. And I didn't start to fight against violence in 2020. Since I was in short pants, a little skinny boy at Bottom Station in Buxton. My aunt to work as a maid in some Portuguese people kitchen. She would come home and she would curse. And one thing she said, if I have to wear one underwear so that you will go to school and not have to work in somebody's kitchen, I will do it. And she did it, I imagine. She knew economic violence. She knew what is it to have somebody ring a bell for you to carry food for them and ring a bell for you to come and clean up after them. She understood that, and she didn't want her children or nieces and nephews. That is what drives me. That is what drives me. And so the struggle is before us. The rigging has started. You heard it first on Politics 101. The rigging has started. Don't wait. We're not going to wait till the voters list and we're going to get the clean voters list. We got to get it. And we're going to get biometrics. We got to get it. But we also have to make sure that our people are there at GCOM. No, Clement, no, Mr. Roy. GCOM is not going to look like the PPP. GCOM will look like the PPP, the AFC, the PNC, the WPA, and all the other parties. That's my message tonight, on a Thursday night. We come in peace. We talk in peace. We hope they're listening. I don't want to talk in any quiet corner. I want them to get the message that where there is life and where there is love, there is a pathway to justice and freedom. And we ain't going to be resting. We're not going to be resting. I'm sorry that my brother's not been able to make it on tonight, brother Aubrey Rettmeyer. He wasn't able to make it on tonight. I think he had some difficulties with the technology. The last time he had some difficulties, but he got on. Tonight he didn't quite get on. But we're going to try until we get him. So go forth. Go forth walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. Go forth walking in the footsteps. If you're a Christian, walk in the footsteps of Jesus. If you're a spiritualist, walk in the footsteps of the Lion of Judah, who shall break every chain and give us the victory again and again. Walk in the footsteps of Marcus Garvey. Walk in the footsteps of Coffee. Walk in the footsteps of those women, I'm stressing women tonight, those women who stood guard against oppression, those women who made the sacrifices. The men were there, but it's the women who saw us off to school in the morning. And when we came home at midday, it was the women who fed us. And from the village that I come from, when they stopped the train, it was the women, some of them pregnant, who stood in front of that train. Go forth in their footsteps until we come again to continue our righteous battle against the unrighteous, against the ungodly, and against the enemies of peace and justice in Guyana. As usual, I love you all. Love you all. Love you all.